The MIATA has been on the market for over 25 years. A lightweight, front-engine, rear-wheel drive roadster is hard to beat. But is MIATA always the answer? Maybe most of the time. I am Zed for me. Let's get this bad boy started. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Zed for me, and today we're going to be answering one question only. Is an automatic MIATA any fun? There's probably in excess of 100 videos reviewing the NA MIATA, and I have not seen a single one where the MIATA is actually automatic. And so I thought I'd make this video because one of my roommates owns this car, and a couple of you guys have been asking me to review it. And I don't think you guys know, or at least I didn't think you guys knew, that it was actually an automatic. Now, everybody knows about the manual MIATA and how cheap they are, how accessible they are, and just how great of a car they make as project cars, right? But nobody ever really talks about the automatic MIATA. And so what I want to answer today is an automatic MIATA any fun? The NA MIATA ran from 1989 to 1997. And as you can hear, a lot of stuff rattles and a lot of stuff likes to move around because this car is definitely showing its age. Now, this 1990 NA MIATA is nothing to write home about. The interior of this car isn't amazing. The seats have okay bolstering. The dash and interior of this car is not something that you're going to be telling all your friends about. But at the end of the day, people who buy MIATAs don't really buy it for these things either. When I was looking at the Z4, I'd looked into MIATA, a Z3, a S2000, and the MIATA was kind of the first one that I wanted to cross off my list. Now, I was only looking into the manual ones, but I had come across a couple of Craigslist ones that were automatic. And honestly, it didn't appeal to me, just like it probably wouldn't appeal to many of you who are looking into getting a MIATA. So I actually have this theory that I want to share with you guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I see it is that the slower a car is, the more it needs to be a manual. So in order to illustrate what I mean by this, let's start by talking about the opposite end of the spectrum. Cars like the Porsche 918, the Ferrari LaFerrari, the McLaren P1. These cars are cars that you would not want to get in a manual. Nobody ever complains that these cars don't come in a manual because their gearbox is really the reason why they're able to put down the numbers that they do. If these cars were built in manual versions, they would likely be much slower. You might argue it's more engaging, but at the end of the day, they wouldn't achieve the status that they do by being a manual transmission. Then you start getting into cheaper, quote-unquote, supercars. Cars like the McLaren 675 LT, the Audi R8, Ferrari 488. These are the cars where you could start to argue that a manual transmission would be better suited to them just for the driver experience. But at the same time, these are the cars that are less and less likely nowadays to come out in manual transmission versions. Moving a little bit down further, cars like the M3, like the Golf R that I own. It becomes more of a gray area in terms of what the better transmission is to get. So there's a big heated debate whether the DSG Golf R is better than the manual Golf R, and you can argue all day long. There's never going to be an answer in terms of which one is better. However, if you start moving more and more towards slower cars, I'm getting to the MIATA obviously, even cars like my Z4, S2000, Porsche Boxster, cars in this range where you're talking about maybe around a 6-second 0 to 60, cars in this range, if you get them in an automatic, you're really going to be missing out, and you're really going to miss having a manual transmission. Obviously, the S2000 doesn't come in automatic transmission, and for good reason. It would definitely not sell nearly as well as the manual version did when it was out. Cars like my Z4 come in automatic and come in manual. The automatics, they sell for much cheaper now because the resale value is just tanking. Nobody buys a car like that and just wants to cruise around in an automatic. They want a manual transmission that's engaging to drive, that's fun to drive, and as a result, the automatic versions of these cars are just not nearly as valuable as the manual versions. So that brings me to the Miata. The Miata is obviously a cult car. It's a club car. Many people buy it and they have lots of fun with it. They get to meet a lot of other Miata owners, and over time they build up like a sort of a culture that's built all around Miatas. However, you'll never really hear about people making project cars out of automatic Miatas. And so that really brings me back to what my theory is all about. My theory is the slower a car is, the more it needs to be a manual. There's not many cars on a road today that are slower than a 1990 Miata. And so you're never really gonna find somebody who goes out to try and find an automatic Miata to modify it to enjoy. Whereas the manuals, they're not depreciating in value nearly as quickly as these automatics. And there are people who will still pay really good prices for really good condition Miatas. Now, with the top down and kind of just cruising along here, an automatic Miata isn't the worst thing in the world. But honestly, the only people who are going to be buying these types of cars are probably people who are past their middle age. Maybe they don't know how to drive stick. Maybe they just want an automatic just to cruise around. If you're talking about people our age, younger, the only time they would buy a Miata is if it's manual. And really for good reason. Manual, no matter how slow the car is, you're still going to get that driver engagement. You're still going to be able to have some fun with it. And it's gonna feel quicker than an automatic, which is a big part of the reason why people will buy these cars. No one's buying this car because it's fast. However, when you drive a Miata around, it's so tiny, it's like a go-kart, and so it'll feel fast. There are some videos out there of people drifting automatic Miatas, and some of the automatics actually have LSDs. So for those of you guys out there who are looking for a Miata, one possible option is to actually get an automatic Miata and swap it over to manual. One reason why you might want to do that is because it might save you a lot of money. You can find some really good condition Miatas out there where they're automatic, so they sell for a lot cheaper. And because there are probably a lot of wrecked Miatas out there that have good transmissions, a good option might actually be to swap over the manual into an automatic, and then you have yourself a great condition Miata, manual transmission, and at a fraction of the cost that it would cost you to buy a manual transmission Miata in really good condition. I want to apologize to those of you out there who actually own automatic Miatas. Leave in the comments below if you do, and basically tell me how you ended up with an automatic Miata, if it was something that you were looking for, or it's just a car that you ended up, maybe a hand-me-down or something. I'm interested in hearing from you guys who owns these automatic Miatas, because my roommate, it was basically a car given to him by his aunt in order to get around for school. So yeah, there's probably only one reason why you would actually want to buy one of these automatic Miatas, and that's to actually swap a manual into one of them. So that's kind of my take on the automatic Miata. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it below. Please browse the channel. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys next time. So just for the heck of it, we're gonna try and get this thing up to speed and see how engaging it is to drive.